guys, welcome to That Florida Feeling. How is everybody this week? Hope everybody's doing good. Thank you, as always, to you who interact with the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok pages. YouTube is still a work in progress, but you guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. I also want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Black Coral Rum. It is distinctly Florida. It is amazing. I am in love with the black rum. You can definitely check them out at steeltiespirits.com. You can purchase it on their website, or you can even go to their distillery, which is Steel Tie Distillery. It's out of West Palm Beach. Definitely want to go. Definitely want to check this out. It is so good, you guys. Like, you sip on this rum and you just think of Florida. So definitely want to give them a shout out. You can definitely check it out on my podcast page, as well as the Facebook and Instagram pages. I will be posting a TikTok page of me sampling some of it. And you want a Florida drink? You got to go get Black Coral Rum. So shout out to them. Thank you also to everybody who participated in the Wednesday polls and questions. A lot of you apparently do not like horror movies, but those of you who apparently like the movie The Thing. Although, shout out to Mallory for giving the best answer ever and saying reality, because you're not wrong there. Alright guys, today we're going to talk about something interesting. I mean, let's face it, Florida has many different types of cities, places, and people, so yeah, it really does have something for everyone. But does it also have a place for cryptids? Maybe swamp apes? Well, if you believe in Florida and you believe Florida Man and you have been around long enough, then I'm sure you do. You know, you've heard of the swamp ape. It's a thing. You know, it roams the Everglades, supposedly. And I've even talked about it in another podcast. But where does the swamp ape originate? A small city, honestly. A small city in the very south part of Florida is the one that we will call the swamp ape's home. And I am talking about Ochipee, Florida. Ochipee, Florida is the unofficial home of the swamp ape. Ochipee, Florida is also home to the smallest operating post office in the U.S. It's kind of cool if you actually get to go there. It looks like nothing more than a small utility shed, but it is in fact a post office. Now, where is Ochipee? Ochipee is actually in super South Florida in Collier County. It's almost at the bottom of the state. The town sits a few miles away from Naples if you're heading east into the Everglades. And the community got its name in a very interesting way. It got its name because someone once asked what the name of the area was, and the person they asked didn't know, so there was a Seminole that was apparently in the same store as them, and they turned and asked the Seminole, what is the word for farm? He answered, Ochipee. Hence, Ochipee or Ochapee, and that is how the town got its name. Now, the town actually started as a one-family tomato farming community in the early 1920s. James Gaunt bought 240 acres of land along U.S. Highway 41 at $100 per acre, and the area was settled. The community grew from army tents that this family lived in as they farmed tomatoes into an actual area. It was a small family-oriented community, and everybody basically worked and lived around this tomato farm. Ochipee is home to the world's smallest operating post office. Like I said, it's actually really cool. The way it became the world's smallest operating post office is the original post office burned down, and the residents began to use a small storage shed to continue to be able to have mail service, and, you know, it just kind of stuck. I mean, the shed is still a post office. It's still in operation. You can still mail stuff out of it today, and it's kind of now its own tourist attraction. Now, the original farm and area surrounding Ochipee was actually absorbed into the Everglades when the U.S. created its national park. But a few businesses do remain in the area, and Ochipee is actually also the headquarters of the Big Cypress National Preserve. So the community is known for its post office, restaurant with some amazing seafood, sitting on the basically the banks of the Everglades, being home to the Big Cypress National Preserve, but it is also home to the skunk ape. Now, you've heard me talk about the skunk ape. You've heard people on my podcast talk about the skunk ape. Let's finally talk about the skunk ape. And yes, I did mention it in Florida Myths and Legends, but let's really get into what is the skunk ape. The skunk ape is said to resemble Bigfoot. It is bipedal, which means it walks on two legs. It is an ape-like creature that is said to stand between 7 between 5 and 7 feet tall, more on the 7-foot range, which is why I was like, it's 7 feet tall. So we're between 5 and 7. So an average guy. The ape is said to have brownish to reddish brown hair, covered completely head to toe in that hair, and is known for its foul odor that is said to be similar to a skunk, hence its name, the skunk ape. Now, this ape is said to have been part of southeastern U.S. folklore since the European settlers came to its shores, and before that, it came from the people who lived there before them. Now, the skunk ape is one of those myths or legends in Florida that people talk about, and everybody just accepts because, let's face it, if its home is in the Everglades or the Big Cypress National Preserve, good luck, because while we have drone videos of it and we have flyovers of the Everglades, we don't know what is hiding deep down in the Everglades or the preserve. We just don't. Like, it's one of those massive areas that it's just really hard to search. And some of it may not have even been searched yet. We don't know. Now, the skunk ape has been talked about for years, and it's actually usually known as the Florida Bigfoot. The Seminoles actually have a myth that speaks of a foul-smelling, powerful, large, secretive creature called the Esti Kapkaki, which basically translates into cannibal giant. So they knew what the swamp ape was before we did. And the reports of these creatures really started in Florida in 1818, of course, when the white settlers were coming in, which I'm sure the Seminoles talked about it long before that, but this is like the first recorded sighting, I guess we're going to call it a sighting, of Bigfoot. And this happened in 1818 when people from what is now Apalachicola, so we're talking the Panhandle, not even the Everglades, the Panhandle, spoke of a man-sized monkey raiding their food supplies and chasing the fishermen. That's the very first sighting we have in the 1800s. And of course, the sightings continued. They have continued since then, but they really picked up in the 60s and 70s. So from 1960 to 1974 is really when we have our major sightings. However, the first well-publicized sighting of the skunk ape was 1957. And that is when a pair of hunters claimed that the ape invaded in their camp. And that's really what kicked off the 1960s to 74, sightings. In 1974, a large, foul-smelling, dirty, hairy monkey ran into the suburbs of Dade County. So now you're talking about this thing coming out of the Everglades and running through the streets close to Miami and running back into the Everglades. That was one of also the most popular sightings. And of course, sightings also come from the Big Cypress National Preserve. It is right on the edge of the Everglades, and if we're talking about the swamp ape living in Okeechobee, it's also right there. Now, the next rash of sightings came again in 1977, and that is when an eyewitness in several counties actually saw the creature. So there was multiple sightings at this point. And that was really through that corridor from Collier County up to the Big Cypress National Preserve and over towards Dade County. So southern part of Florida is where a lot of these eyewitness sightings happened. Now, the most single sightings, a group sighting, came in 1997, and that was when a passenger bus was going through the National Preserve, and they spotted a 7-foot-tall ape-like creature way out in a field. 30 to 40 people were on this bus, and they all reported seeing the same thing. 7-foot-tall, ape-like, hairy. So, it's a thing. Something's out there. I mean, Florida even tried to pass a bill that made it illegal to possess, take, harm, or molest humanoid animals. So Florida even admits that there's something roaming those Everglades and those preserves and the places that people don't populate. Sightings even continued past 1997. Sightings continued in 2000 when the Sarasota Sheriff's Department received 2 anonymous photographs of a large, hairy, ape-like creature near the Myakka River State Park, which is going up further towards Tampa. So the park, just for reference, is southeast of Sarasota, directly east of Venice. So Collier County's at the bottom. You're going towards Tampa. It's right in the middle right there. Now, this park isn't part of the Everglades or the preserve, but it's in the very similar terrain. That's really when South Florida's terrain kind of starts to shift and change. Now, we do have evidence that shows that something is out there. There are plenty of photographs and eyewitness sightings that are talked about it. There's audio. of something yelling. There's footprints that exist, that some kind of creature is roaming our swamps in the forest of southeastern Florida. The sightings have come as far north as the Panhandle, but the majority of the sightings do stay in the Everglades and the preserves. The eyewitness accounts are all usually within the same color, size, description of an ape-like creature, and definitely that smell. Everybody talks about that smell. Now, a video surfaced in 2000 of an ape-like creature walking through the field near Ochipee, Florida, which is in the Everglades. And like I said, it sits on Alligator Alley, kind of between Naples and Miami, but closer to Naples than Miami. And that's one of the best evidences that we have. Another evidence that we have that really supports this is a footprint that was cast from a set that came out of the Big Cypress Preserve. And of course, the sightings aren't the only thing that's frequently reported about this ape. It's the smell. People can be walking through the area and just the smell hits them. And it's apparently an unforgettable smell. Kind of hope I never get to smell it one day, honestly. While it'd be really cool to see the creature, I'm not looking forward to the smell because it's said to be a mixture of wet dog and skunk. And that's how you can really tell that it's been nearby or it's been in the area, is just by that smell alone. And people have actually tried to track the ape with the smell, but this is said to be a very fast creature on just 2 legs. Now, people, of course, continue to look for the swamp ape to this day, and you can take tours through the Everglades on the airboats and look for this fabled creature. The creature's existence has been denied by scientists just because there's not a lot of first-hand sightings. I mean, there's eyewitness sightings, but nobody's gotten up close to this thing. Park rangers haven't even really gotten up close to see this thing. And since it is a large area and the visitors are kind of only in certain areas, it's completely possible. You know, this ape has been a topic of conversation and a way of life for people in South Florida for a long time. But of course, South Florida being South Florida, they've actually adopted this as their unofficial mascot for the area. You can take tours, buy souvenirs, hear stories from the locals about the sights and the sounds, and of course, the unforgettable smell of the swamp ape. And this mystery isn't likely to go away anytime soon with the various sightings. Even documentaries are out there. I mean, the Animal Planet filmed an entire episode just about this creature. The idea of the creature roaming the swamps is what keeps people out there and looking for it. And the idea of an unknown powerful thing is what keeps these myths and legends and tales going on for centuries, but you can't deny that there could be something out there. And are there still people looking for this? Absolutely. The Ochipee is the epicenter of the movement to find the swamp ape. You can even find Sheely's, the official swamp ape headquarters. The swamp ape headquarters sits right on the edge of the Everglades in Ochipee, and they're committed to finding and proving that this is a thing. That the swamp ape is real. And the headquarters are really cool. They want to educate people not only about a swamp ape, but they want to educate people about the Everglades and about Florida and about what else could possibly or does live there. They have tours that'll take you into the glades, and they have, real tour guides that come from the area. They've got native Floridians, Seminoles, Miccosukees. So these are people who not only know the area, they've grown up in the area. They're used to the area. And they want you to understand their love of the area. They want to show off the beauty of the Everglades, show you the wildlife, maybe even show you the swamp ape. And you can tour with them in a variety of ways. They have airboats, pole boats, private safaris, hiking, canoeing, and kayaking. I am not about to canoe through the Everglades. Sorry. I just was like, I think out of everything, hiking, canoeing, and kayaking sound the worst to me. Because that means you're on the water surface. And, I think I'd probably pick the airboat if I was going to do that. Now, of course, I told you that they wanted to teach people about other parts of the Everglades. So they also teach people about the animals through their education exhibit, which includes Goldie. Goldie is a 24-foot reticulated python. No thanks. I'm sure Goldie's great. Just keep Goldie over there. And of course, the headquarters wants you to really get a feel for the area, so you can even camp out at these headquarters. You can stay in your own camper, you can stay in a cabin, or you can even stay in a native-style cheeky hut. Cheeky huts are styled from the Seminole tribes, and basically they're thatch roofs that are on poles that have a floor that sit up off the ground. So, and it's glamping in the Everglades, kind of. And I did look into the pictures of these. These look really nice. They do. They look really nice. They're, you know, they have a screened-in door to kind of keep anything from wandering in at night. But they, you know, it's really about getting to know nature at this point. And I think it's really cool. Granted, there's no AC, and the bathrooms are in a bathhouse, you know, a little bit away, so hope you don't have to pee at 2 a.m., because God knows what you're going to run into. But it's a really cool idea, you know, and if you go to this place and you go to their website, you can actually see all the stuff that they really kind of talk about. And, I mean, if I had a camper, I'd probably go to this place and hang out in, like, winter when it's cooler, and, you know, maybe take an airboat tour of the Everglades. It sounds kind of cool. But this little small community and the Swamp Ape headquarters and the Swamp Ape continue to stand the test of time. Of course, the community sits on the edge of the Everglades and continues to survive hurricanes, hot weather, and of course, Florida Man. Today's Florida Man forgot what time he just kind of forgot. He forgot what city he was in. He forgot what time he was in. This man, Don Schwartz is his name, drove around Wesley Chapel in his smart car. Doesn't sound too bad, right? It's not really a Florida Man thing. Mr. Schwartz customized his car to look like the Flintmobile, complete with him being dressed up as Fred Flintstone. The local Fred Flintstone was pulled over for speeding. There are so many jokes there, you guys. But don't be Florida Man. Don't be dressed as in the Flintmobile and get pulled over for speeding. You obviously didn't do your research. All right, guys, so I have one more part of this podcast, and I have Q back, my special guest that talked about St. Augustine. Q also researched paranormal and also did some research about the cryptids. So me and him are going to talk about where he thinks the swamp ape is and his encounters with it, possibly from, you know, years ago. We're also going to talk about a couple other cryptids in Florida. They don't necessarily involve the swamp ape, but they are still interesting stories between me and Q. So, you know, listen up. I think you'll find his stories really, really interesting. I did. But just remember, if you're walking around at night and you get a bad smell, it may just not be that skunk. So, who knows what's out there? All right, on to Q. All right, guys, we're back, and we are going to talk about another part of Florida that you may or may not have heard me discuss, and that is cryptids.
All right, so Ghost Man Q Becky, once again, shout out for Jody for letting me have this time.
You are welcome anytime, sir.
So, if you guys live in and around the Ocala National Forest, you know what I'm talking about, and maybe you can actually help me out with a couple of things. But let me go back to, 2002, and me and some friends were camping. I want to say we were on the western side of the Ocala National Forest, and we were down there on a Bigfoot hunt. Okay? And I mean that literally. We saw it on the BFRO website. Check it out, by the way. If you guys are into cryptids or Bigfoot at all, you definitely got to check this website out.
Bigfoot or skunk ape?
Well, they call it skunk ape down here, but it's all
That's
kind
what
of the
I'm saying.
same thing.
Like, what are we talking about?
It's kind of all the same thing.
All right, fair.
At least as far as I understand it.
Yeah.
But, so we get there. It's like a Wednesday night, and it's in the fall. Daylight savings time hadn't quite ended yet, but it wasn't far from it. And when we got there, we had set up camp, and there's like 8 of us. And we're just sitting there, we're hanging out, and then we start hearing this god-awful ruckus. And if you know, you know. We start hearing these, like, cries, these shrieks, these grunts, these roars. And every single one of us, me and my partner, Bo, who was my partner in my paranormal team that I had, we definitely get the feeling that there is a huge amount of hostility. But, according to us, it wasn't directed at us.
But you felt the anger.
Yeah.
Like, isn't it amazing when you feel an entity, you feel that anger just radiating off of it?
Absolutely. They were absolutely raging, pissed off about something, but we couldn't help but shake the feeling that it wasn't about us. It wasn't directed at us. And this was a good distance away. So I'm by no means a professional in this regard, but this had to have been at least 300 yards away. 300-400 yards away. It was a good distance away from us.
So it wasn't on top of you, but you still felt it.
Exactly.
And you can feel it from a far away distance.
And if my sense of direction is serving me, it usually does, but not always. But this was from where we were at in the park. It was almost due north.
Oh.
And almost due south of us. And about the same distance, we heard another set of shrieks, growls, roars, and snorts.
So you're telling me that you feel there's more than one?
Yeah.
All right.
Like maybe there was a family group of something getting pissed off at a family group of something else.
Okay, so you might believe that there's more than one cryptid in the Ocala and or Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
That's kind of what I'm going for. And now,
All right.
again, please
Okay.
understand, I am no professional in this regard. I am not a professional researcher. I am not a biologist. I am not a zoologist. I am not a cryptozoologist in any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
But I got a lot of experience outdoors. And later on that night, it's probably about 11 o'clock at this point. About half of us are in bed. Me, my partner, a couple of people were awake. We're just talking. And then that
thing.
That apocryphal silence hits
Oh.
where everything stops.
Like
No
you don't-
crickets, no birds, nothing. There is an absolute dead silence that just carpets everything.
And that is the creepiest sound ever.
And about 3 seconds after we realized that it was absolute dead silence, this huge herd of about 22 deer comes screaming right through the camp. They just go running straight
Shit.
through, which anybody who's a hunter knows that usually means something's chasing them.
Yeah.
And the next day, well, nothing ever happened the rest of that night. About I don't even know how long it was after this, but the night sounds came back, everything like that. We wound up crashing, everything was good. The next day, we're driving to the other side of the Ocala National Forest, and there were 2 deer with no heads and no intestines that were just left.
Literally something gutted them.
Yeah.
Okay.
The head was taken off, and it was not cut. It was torn.
Okay, but here's my question. Do you feel that those deer could have been done by human hands?
It is absolutely possible.
Okay.
No question that it was possible.
Okay.
But you have to understand, humans would have cut the heads off. These were torn off because these
Okay.
were not clean cut. These
So not
were
jagged saws, just ripped.
Exactly. This was
Okay.
absolutely torn. And it didn't happen where we found the bodies because there was not a drop of blood on the ground.
Okay, so it wasn't ensanguinated there, it was elsewhere. Okay.
Sanguinated. That's a word. Very good word. Thank you, Jody.
Ah! Hey.
That's exactly the word that I was
That
looking for. Thank
background's
you.
coming in to do. But now here's my question, because we've driven through the Ocala National Forest. I've done a podcast on the Ocala and its national forest. Do you believe that there is something weird going on there?
I believe there's something weird going on in the entire state of Florida, but I do think there's something that's kind of like
Fair.
centralized
Okay, but
in that part of Florida.
do you feel that it's crypto? Do you feel that it's supernatural?
I
Do you
think it's
feel
kinda-
that it's dumbasses Florida man running around?
That's
What do you feel?
always a consideration, no matter
Right,
what you hear in the state
right,
of Florida. You've
right.
always got to put Florida man into that equation
Right,
somewhere.
50%
Especially
at least.
seeing as how the Ocala National Forest is Rainbow Family Central.
Okay.
Ahem.
Now, I will talk about the Rainbow Family, and if
Okay.
you won't. So, I know that the Rainbow Family likes to meet in Ocala National Forest.
They do.
All right. And I know that they like to camp there. And
They
I know
do.
that people like to go missing in the Ocala National Forest.
They do.
Now, do you feel that these disappearances, now we're just speculating. Obviously, neither of us know actually for sure because we're not stupid enough to go in the Ocala National Forest. We're not going to camp there because, well,
Yeah.
I don't do camping and you don't want to go there. So, do you feel that these disappearances could lead to some of the crypto or supernatural feelings that we get there?
Absolutely. Because I do
Because-
know, Rainbow Family aside, I do know that way back in the day, and I do mean the 50s and 60s,
Yeah.
a certain family in the state of Florida that we're not going to
Family.
mention.
Yeah,
And
family.
I don't mean the Rainbow Family.
Not the Rainbow family. Family.
Let's just say of like Italian descent.
Right.
Happen to use a great portion of the Ocala National Forest and the surrounding lowlands as a dumping ground.
Now, you don't possibly mean the family out of Tampa, do you?
That's one of them. That was the rumor.
Okay,
I'm
that
not saying
was-
that for certain. That was just
No,
a
no,
rumor.
no. I have actually done a podcast on that family.
Okay.
And I can say that that was brought up in my research. And so, my thing with the Ocala National Forest, since we're talking about it,
Yeah.
is that it's vast.
It really
It's
is.
big.
It's a lot bigger than a lot of people think it is.
A lot of the rangers even say that they can't get to all the
Exactly.
land. So, I mean, you got people going around doing whatever they want. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West.
It is.
Even people who've camped there have run into people that they didn't know was there.
Now, please allow me to say that absolutely there is a human factor potentially involved in a lot of these disappearances and a lot of these stories. I will absolutely be
yeah.
the first person in line and the loudest voice to agree to that.
Absolutely. I mean,
You-
Bundy wasn't far
Yes.
from the Ocala
Gainesville.
National Forest,
He was
right?
right there in
Thank you.
Gainesville.
There you go. He did murder a lot of people in Gainesville. Well, not a lot of people, but he did some. But my point is that the
Well,
Ocala National Forest is vast, and
Yep.
that there is not. It would be dumb to not consider that this is an
Yeah.
option. That this
Sure.
is what happens, because there's a lot of campsites. There's a lot
There
of
is.
rural campsites. There's
Yep.
a lot of primitive campsites. there's just a lot of places out there that could be,
and a lot of places that never get paid any attention to at all whatsoever. So it's a great place for leaving something you want to forget about.
right. And I don't think that's
And the last thing that I will say about the cryptid thing in the Ocala National Forest,
all right.
look up the guy Ron Moorhead. This guy is famous for getting what's known as the Sierra Sounds, which are the famous Sasquatch vocalizations he got in the Sierra Nevada mountains back in the 70s. Definitely look this guy up. Well, apparently, I don't know when this was. It was later, so this is like in the 80s at some point.
80s,
or
90s,
or later.
Yeah.
But Ron Moorhead and a couple of his buddies were in the Ocala National Forest, and they actually heard some very similar vocalizations there that they heard in the Sierra Nevada mountains.
Okay, now let's talk about that. So, obviously, in Florida, we know it as the skunk ape.
Swamp ape,
skunk ape. Have you had any encounters with that? Because I have.
I've had the smell.
Where did you find the smell
at?
at?
When we were in the Ocala National Forest. It was
now,
that same weekend.
We were camping towards Wauchula, which, if you know, is in the middle of the fucking nowhere.
Yep.
Content warning. We were in the middle of nowhere, in the literal central part of the state of Florida, down near the bottom, and really right smack dab in the Everglades. Whether it's considered Everglades or not, is still that swampy,
very, very similar type of land. It's
correct?
not actually where the Everglades start, but
no,
very, very similar terrain.
Actually, right off the Peace River.
Yeah.
And you could hear things. You could hear things you didn't want to identify. You could hear things that you just wanted to go inside and shut your doors and windows. And
a lot of local Indians these days, they use they do like airboat tours,
right?
And stuff
Like Okeechobee, right out of Okeechobee,
down
where
in
the skunk ape swamp headquarters are.
All those places. They do a lot of those airboat tours and stuff like that. And I'm going to tell you right now, those guys, and you can. I'm quoting them when I say we've heard noises back in that swamp. We don't want to know what was making the noises.
And there's, like I said, when we were staying in Wauchula, right off the Peace River, we were probably 100 yards off the Peace River. And we would stay out all night, and the Moose Lodge would quiet down about midnight. And from midnight till 2 a.m. when you went to bed, it was you and the fucking crickets. But let me tell you, it wasn't just the crickets. And you know what an alligator sounds like. You've lived in Florida, you know what the grunts and the groans and the moans and how they sound. And this was not that. So, I mean, do you think there's honestly something hiding in the Everglades? Because I do.
Absolutely.
I do.
I don't think it's hiding. I just think it lives there.
You think it's now? Do you believe in the? I mean, you've seen the videos from like the early 2000s.
Oh yeah.
The entire freaking tour group caught a picture of it. Do you think that's real?
Absolutely.
All right.
There is definitely something going on down there. Now, it's kind of funny. If you take a look at all of the Bigfoot type cryptid sightings all over the United States, the largest concentrations you will find are around areas that have cave systems.
Which is Florida.
People don't realize that Florida has a huge underground river and cave system. Not many people know that.
Which is funny because, no offense, with the amount of sinkholes.
Well, yeah, exactly.
With the amount of rivers, with the amount of Everglades,
Precisely.
with the amount of just stupid stuff.
I mean, we've got.
I mean, you go
even right there around Ocala. You got the Itchituckney, you got Judy Springs,
right?
You got,
you can do free diving in them. You can do scuba diving. You can do, and that's places that. Obviously, if you're diving, there's got to be a cave system, and that's
These
actually
old Broad River channels and stuff like that. Not many people really think about caves in Florida, but it's true.
I mean, just because we don't have basements doesn't mean we don't have caves, and that's actually why you don't have a basement, because you do have a cave.
Exactly.
And where do you think sinkholes come from?
Exactly.
Caves imploding on themselves, literally. And so, do you think that there's any other cryptids that could have lived in Florida beyond?
Absolutely.
All right, what's your theory?
So, I do not remember what the Native American name for this is, and I'm sorry, I should know this by now, and I don't. But there is, according to the Seminole and the Creek and the Miccosukee, as a matter of fact.
So basically the Seminoles, which is what they became.
Well, true, yeah. There's like a humanoid panther.
Yes, the were-panthers.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
there's
an actual name for them, and I'm sorry, I cannot remember the name for them, but there's an actual name for them.
Yeah.
But when I say recently, I mean like in the past 20
years,
since like 2000.
Yeah.
There have been quite a few sightings of this thing in various parts of Florida that are pretty inhabited, which really blows me away because this wasn't like back in the Everglades. I mean, this is like outside of Stark, outside of Green Cove Springs, outside of like Fort Myers.
It goes north. It goes as far north as the freaking Florida border to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about, but what I find weird about this, we're going to call it a were-panther. This were-panther is that it stays to the East Coast.
It
you
does.
don't, like the swamp ape, skunk ape stays to the west.
To the west
and the panther, but do you know I have a theory on why I think that is. Do you know
I
why?
don't know. Yeah, I would love to know.
Where's the Seminole Reservation at?
Well, which one? There's a couple. But I know what you're getting
Okay,
at
but
now.
where are they at? They're
Up
all
there
down
on-
the East Coast.
Yeah.
And where do the Seminoles have the most, like, where do they appreciate the land the most?
I got you.
Down the East Coast.
Yeah.
So where are these people going to thrive the most?
And let me go ahead and touch on another cryptid that I have no idea what this one was all about, but this happened. It was Easter Sunday weekend, 1985. I was living here in St. Augustine at the time.
Okay.
I was at a friend of mine's house, and we had just gone to see Ted Nugent and Aerosmith. So,
Okay, all right, good concert, good concert.
So there you go. You can
Yeah.
you can actually look up the time I'm talking about by looking up that concert date. It was
You-
Ted Nugent, Aerosmith, the White Line. It was an
you
awesome show.
You dated yourself there, sir.
Yeah, I did. I
Yeah,
really
you did.
Don't
You
look at
did.
me in that tone of voice. I'm
That's-
old. Shut up. Leave me
That's
alone.
fine. I'm not. I might not have been born at that time, but I'm not. Okay, go ahead.
But the house I was staying at, they were right on the Intercoastal Waterway. I was downstairs. It's like sun's coming up. I'm high as a kite. We're all high as a kite. But I was out there smoking a cigarette, and I'm looking down at some tracks that were along the river, and we saw everything that you would think: possums, snakes, gators, everything like that. And I still have pictures of this, and my
Yeah.
dad. And the next time Jody and Matt come up here, I'm going to have these pictures available for them so they can actually see them.
Ooh, I can't
We
wait.
found raccoon tracks. Okay.
Okay, but that's
These were absolutely raccoon tracks. Absolutely no question.
So
the
the
one
three-
issue with
the
these
toes-
raccoon tracks
yeah.
was as big as my hand.
So you found a mutant raccoon.
We found raccoon tracks, and they were just regular raccoon tracks. They
Yeah.
really were.
Yeah.
I could tell this thing was kind of heavy. I figured it might have, at first glance, I figured it was a pregnant mother, because it was about that time of year.
Okay, yeah. So it's
And
spring
so-
and things
and-
are going in and out.
And
yeah.
they were pretty deep in the ground, so she weighed a little bit extra. I mean,
Yeah.
expect a mother,
All right, fair,
okay.
fair.
But then I realized, okay, you got to understand something, folks. I'm 6'5". I got big hands.
Yeah.
And
I can
these
attest
raccoon
that you are
tracks,
tall. Yes.
these raccoon tracks were as big as my hand.
All
And
right.
I don't mean just the palm. I mean the entire hand, fingers and
Now,
all.
we've been to St. Augustine. We've lived here. You know this. We've lived in Jacksonville. What part of the intercoastal are you talking about, sir?
Literally northeast
Afternoon?
of Florida in St. Augustine, the part of the Intercoastal Waterway that comes through northern St. Augustine.
So you're talking about not the Bridge of Lions, but past it.
Yeah, up there, close north of the town where the Winn-Dixie is, up there where y'all used to live.
No!
Very, very close up that way.
For
Yeah.
real?
Yes.
Like right off
Yeah.
that sound.
Yep.
Like back in those. Oh my God.
Yep.
We
That
used
part
to
of the
live
Intercoastal.
there.
Yep.
Okay.
That exact. That
I mean,
exact
I'm not
little
going to
stretch.
question. All right. Now here's my question. Cryptids. Have you ever heard of Old Three Toes?
Yes.
Okay. What? Now, did you know about Old Three Toes? You know what Old Three Toes was?
No.
You don't know about Old Three Toes?
I've heard the stories, but I mean, I don't really know.
Oh. So you didn't listen to my podcast? What you telling me?
That might have been where I heard it from.
Okay. Well, Old Three Toes
Okay.
is it's funny actually. It started in Clearwater, and Old Three Toes used to come out of the ocean and he used to walk along the beach near Indian Shores, which is where we used to
Okay,
live,
yeah.
Indian Rocks, and it used to go back in the ocean about Clearwater Beach. Do you know the problem with Old Three Toes?
No.
Old Three Toes was two jackasses in Converses with metal penguin feet.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, that is Old Three Toes. So just remember, Florida Man exists.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And
Please, anything you hear me talking about cryptids or anything in the state of Florida, please understand
can look it
Florida
up.
Man absolutely could play a part in any of these.
And that's why I
So,
have to joke that Old
Yeah.
Three Toes, I kind of want to be Old Three Toes. I kind of want to be the next, let me go put on some big panther shoes and go walking down the beach. I'm not going to because I don't know metalworking like these guys did. But,
Then there was also,
know.
as far as an ocean cryptid, there was the St. Augustine sea monster that washed up on Crescent Beach back in the early 1900s.
you're going to have to explain this.
They
I don't know
thought originally that it was like the decomposed body of a whale, but further study indicated that it could have been like the body of a giant squid.
this. So,
Like Arthur
I have heard of that.
Yeah.
You're talking about the squid.
Well, that's what they think it was.
Yeah.
They weren't 100% certain because they
And
never
they're
really
still
could
not.
nail it down. But yeah,
Actually-
that was the St. Augustine blob, the St. Augustine sea monster.
Do you know where they talk about that?
Huh?
There's an excerpt in the Lightning Museum.
Yeah.
We
Yep, they
went
talk
to
about the lighthouse too.
Yes, we went to the Lightning Museum last time we were in town about a month ago, and they were talking about some interesting St. Augustine stuff. They had all the old pictures of the fort, and they did mention the St. Augustine blob.
Yep.
Which I thought was just very interesting. Now, do Do you know anything about the Lightning
No.
Museum?
Oh, about the Lightning Museum. Yeah, Otto Leitner, man. He was an eccentric. He was an awesome guy. He started that museum because he collected other people's collections.
Bullshit. I was going to say, he didn't start. He stole.
He didn't steal, but he bought other people's collections.
You're right. He was very rich, and he stole.
But he was like buying people's like silver collections and plate collections and any
no.
other collections.
Have you been in there recently?
Not recently, no.
Okay, so we went.
Is it the one with the
What is it?
pool restaurant?
Yeah, their
Yeah.
pool is in the bottom. You can actually see the first indoor swimming pool in the
Yep,
country.
the Alcazar Cafe.
And
to this day, sometimes I see little wet footprints going through it from the little girl that drowned.
can I be honest with you?
Yeah,
They were there.
yeah, I believe it.
It had some really weird, like, alcoves where you
Yep.
could go in, and it was a little creepy. But there was a mummy. Do you know that there's a mummy in
Yes, I did
You're
know.
not supposed to take a picture of it.
Nope.
there? We might have
Yeah.
actually taken a picture of it.
Supposedly that was brought in by... Okay, so that mummy that you're talking
Yeah,
about...
let's talk about the mummy.
The last podcast that I did, you might remember me talking about that Egyptian cult that was up there.
That
over
was
at
the
Minas.
mummy?
Yeah, that was all from the same group of people. That was
So
all
that's
from the same group of people.
that's why it felt weird. Because it's in,
creepy.
and what's weird about that mummy is, so we're talking about haunted Florida, St. Augustine still counts. There is a weird alcove where they have this mummy,
Yeah,
and it's a child mummy.
Yeah.
It's not even an adult, full-grown mummy. It's like 3 feet tall.
Yeah, it's like a 3 or 4 year old kid. Yeah.
Who does that? Stupid
Henry
people.
Flagler.
I know. And I did a
John
podcast on
Dismukes,
Flagler.
Henry
Let's
Flagler,
not.
you know.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And well, what kills me is George Cooley.
Yeah.
George Cooley was in on all that.
Oh yeah.
And George Cooley's fucking, Scarlett's now. Not Scarlett O'Hara's, that closed, but Scarlett's, they're reopened.
Well, they're still calling it Scarlett O'Hara's.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it
Yeah.
was just Scarlett's.
No, they reopened. Thank God they reopened Scarlett O'Hara's. I'm so
Right?
glad they did.
Thank goodness. Everybody in St. Augustine loves
But
that
yeah,
place.
a copy, not the original, but a copy of the bathtub that they found George Coley in is actually in the Lightning Museum.
Whatever happened to the original? See,
Oh,
that's
wow,
the,
yeah.
That's the
That's
mummy.
it, yeah.
We have pictures of it on
Yep,
accident.
and I'm looking at it. Yep.
What happened to the original
So,
bathtub? Do you know? Do you know?
So the Arbazani family, at least at that time, we're talking about many years ago.
Like
but,
50 years ago.
Yeah. It was kind of run by the grandmother. She was like the matriarch of the whole family.
Gotcha.
And the original bathtub, when Arbazani bought the place, the original bathtub sat in his mom's attic. And
Talk about creepy.
I don't know what hurricane it was, but a hurricane came through, a tree hit the house, and one of the beams in the attic came down and it broke the tub. And the tub was a porcelain ball and clawfoot number worth about $250,000. But don't cry too much; they had it insured for like $3.5 million.
But
so.
still, that's a expensive ass bathtub.
Well, I mean, you got to remember. I mean, we're talking about George Coley, who was one of the first local big business partners of Henry Flagler. I mean, this guy was an investment banker. He was already loaded with cash, and then when he got in business with Flagler, he just really started raking in the cash.
Which I'm
And-
sorry, but Flagler.
Yeah.
I got. We're gonna take a break, and I'm gonna tell you stories about Flagler just from working at Flagler College.